Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening and watching the Italian American Entertainment Podcast. And I'm your host, Vince Chiarelli. And today we have the great guitarist and musician Lou Musa with us. And Lou has been credited on many albums and projects as a guitarist, singer, songwriter, and producer, and currently performs and tours as the lead guitarist and backing vocalist for the band The Verve Pipe. So, welcome, Lou. How are you?
Vincenzo, come stai?
Bene. That's all I'm going to say today.
Eccezionale.
Yeah. I
Awesome, man.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on, and
Yeah, great to be here with you.
we've chatted over the years, but I talked, I was looking it up yesterday. You were on my old radio show back when I was Rockford College Radio, and that was
Yeah.
7 years ago
That wasn't
now.
that long. It was it. Oh my gosh.
I
I was
know.
just remember I was talking to my wife about today and I swear it was only like 2 years ago. But
I know.
Was it that long ago? Wow.
7
man.
years. It was like June or July of 2013. It's just like, man,
Wow.
I don't know how time goes that fast. But anyways, so how I start this show before we start getting into, what you do as a musician and all that, is where you're located now. But because it's about Italian Americans, where do you trace your Italian ancestry?
Sure. Well, I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Actually, Granville is where I technically live. It's just a little suburb off of Granville, real small little town. But Grand Rapids is what everyone knows in Michigan. It's a major city.
Sure.
So moved out here in '96. Yeah, '96 from Rockford, Illinois. As far as the Italian part of it, my father immigrated from Ferentino, Italy. I think it was 1958 or 1959. And because Rockford, from what I understand, and it might still be this way, but Rockford is a sister city to Ferentino, Italy.
It is.
Which I don't. Is it the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah. So all of my cousins and like family friends, they all kind of migrated over to Rockford, which is odd to me, but whatever. Yeah. But then he met my mom, who was born in Rockford, but her grandparents were born in Sicily, and I want to say it was Zambuca, Sicily, but I might be wrong. My mom will yell at me when she sees this if I'm wrong. But I think that's south of Palermo, if I'm not mistaken, in Sicily. So that's kind of my Go ahead.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of Sicilians from Sambuca and Rockford. What's your mom's maiden name?
Perniciaro.
Oh, sure. Never knew that about you, but I know some of those. And
well, I know
Rockford.
they knew my mom knew your grandparents very well, actually.
Yeah.
And my grandmother's maiden name was Muso, which is a very popular name. Not Musa, but Muso with two S's and an O. So it's weird how like the world is so small in that way, but
it is. Yeah, no, and so a lot of people watching this have seen my shows before and know that I'm from Rockford. But if you've never seen this, so both Lou and I are from Rockford. I'm still living in Rockford, Illinois, and I had interviewed Lou 7 years ago, and I didn't know at the time that your father and my grandfather were close friends. And then a couple years ago, my grandmother pulled out this picture, and you look a lot like your dad. And it was
I've heard that.
my grandfather and your dad playing the guitar together at like a picnic. And I was like, man, such a small world. It's very crazy how that is, but that's very cool. And I just talked to my grandma about you, of course, the other day, and she still remembers. And it's very cool. But before we get into all that, when did you start performing in music?
So, growing up with my family, it was all about, because, all the people from Ferentino, it was just everyone lived like in the one block of Rockford, like I can't remember the name of the block by Saint Anthony, kind of around that area.
Yeah,
so everyone kind of lived in
Montague Street down there.
Yep, everyone lived in that area. So that's the only people they kind of knew and hung out together with. So every weekend growing up for me was like, it's almost like a party every weekend. So like everyone would just come over to my house or to my uncle's house or somewhere, and it would just become like a big party jam session kind of thing. And anyway, so my father played accordion and guitar. He was self-taught. and we had a bunch of cousins and family friends that played as well. So they'd get together and jam. And my father tried to push the accordion on me. So I messed with that for a little bit, and that didn't take. I mean, I was probably 3 years old and could barely even like. I remember just pinching my fingers in those little thing, whatever you call
Oh
that,
yeah.
those pad things.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he threw a guitar at me, and I started messing with that. And basically, my childhood was all my cousins that were my age running around playing, and me being yelled at to accompany my dad while he's playing accordion. He's yelling at me in Italian, do, re,
Right.
telling me the changes to these songs. And I could care less. And there's pictures of me. You just see my face. I'm just like so bummed out that all I wanted to do was play. And here I had to, accompany my dad and my uncle and cousins and stuff, sing Italian folk songs, basically.
Right.
And so that was about 4 or 5. And then I really kind of got into it. And then my mom and dad decided to get me formal lessons. And then I started taking lessons for 11 years. I took them from Gazzardo Music.
Sure.
I think it was on Charles Street, I believe.
Still there. Yep.
Is it really? Wow. And from a great teacher, Linda Peters, who was a classical guitarist. And she started me off with the basics, and then started getting into like more folk finger style, and then eventually into classical. And then I took the classical thing and started doing more flamenco style playing. So I was really into that. And I mean, that was, most of my childhood was that. And then later on in my teens, I started getting more into rock and, electric guitar kind of playing and stuff like that.
Sure. No, that's interesting. So when you, because it's kind of a similar story to me, it's sad nowadays. I miss I grew up in the 90s. So, I mean, it was a little later than you, but the party, the Italian parties every weekend and going over the aunts and uncles' houses, I very well remember that of, of that. And I miss that. And, at that age.
Totally.
Yeah. At that age, when you're thrown into something like that, you kind of don't always like it. And I don't know if you grew up the same way.
Oh, it sucked. It sucked when I was a kid. I
Yeah.
thought it was the worst thing ever.
Yeah,
I just wanted to hang out with my buddies and stuff and friends. And
Right.
and then I had to go over to my cousin's house and sit around, and there was, a ton of like wine and food. and I mean, we always made it fun, but it was the last thing on my mind I wanted to do, as a kid.
Yeah.
But, now looking back on it, it's like, man,
I know.
not a lot of my friends had that childhood experience, which is, it's a shame, because I look back on it, man, I was like really fond memories
No,
of
I know.
that time,
Yeah, it's interesting because, I didn't want to be singing Che La Luna and all the standard songs all night long into the middle of the night in 1998.
Sure.
It's like, oh, there's
Yeah.
different music out here right now. But
Yeah,
now I wish I would have paid closer attention to my grandfather and the other old timers that were teaching me that stuff. But what are you gonna do?
I was thinking of like, I had to find the record because we were going to talk, and I was like, there was a constant record that was always being played, Italian accordion player, that my dad just was fixated on, and it was just constantly being played, like virtuoso, like accordion player. And I found the record. It was Gigi Stoke. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
No, never heard of him.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we're talking, I think it was maybe from the 60s, 70s at least. But I think he maybe lived until late 90s, but incredible. Wow. You can find his stuff on YouTube, and just an incredible like accordion player. But it was just constantly being played. Obviously then the traditional like folk Italian songs were being played too as well, and live, because they're trying to sing them and remember the words and all that stuff, and making up a lot of words. But
there's always some guy playing a guitar that's out of tune. For some reason, they were always playing the Italian guys. It's like, why is there always a guitar that's out of tune? Even when I went to Sicily and was playing with them out there, it was like your strings out of tune, and then they. Like you said, with it's Ray, play do re, and it's like we don't do that over here.
Let me figure out what's the numbers of that.
Yeah, exactly. But Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
have my dad's old guitar and accordion and stuff like that from
oh,
when,
that's
he
cool.
passed. But yeah, the guitar it's like, you can't even play it. It's
No,
so
yeah.
hard. I mean, no wonder it's so out of tune. It's
Yeah,
like, this
right.
thing is like a piece of garbage,
Yeah,
man.
exactly. But so, growing up with it, I'm sure your dad, of course, was a big influence on you and in
Yeah.
your life. But did you, even though you're not out there playing Italian music right now,
Yeah.
was there an Italian American musician that you kind of looked up to or kind of influenced you a little bit when you were young?
Man, I mean, obviously everything that I grew up, that was played in the house, I think had an influence on me with whether it be classical or even the Gigi Stoke thing. So I think it influenced me in a way. As far as like anyone in particular, probably not. I mean, Frank Zappa.
All right. Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
there you go.
but but I don't think of it as like an Italian
You're
kind
right.
of vibe there. But yeah, nothing. A guitar player. I'm just gonna tell you the normal guitar player influences. For me, it was on the classical guitar part of it or flamingo style was Segovia.
Sure.
Obviously everyone's going to name him. And then when I started getting into electric guitar, it was, the greats, Jimi Hendrix and, Eddie Van Halen, of course. And when my teenage years, it was Randy Rhoads and,
Right.
all those guys. And so, now when I look back on really what influenced me is not only like a musician, but as a songwriter, I go back to like it's more like the Beatles and that kind of thing that really it's still to this day influences everything I write and everything I
Yeah.
kind of how I play. I refer to that melodic kind of
Hmm.
structure of those pop bands of the
Right.
time. But
Yeah.
they were so groundbreaking that I think everyone looks at them as a main influence in their musical lives.
Yeah, no,
But
I was a late bloomer with the Beatles for a long time. I couldn't stand it, and until I was maybe about 17, did I actually like wake up and I was like, oh man, this is some great stuff. And now Sirius XM has the Beatles channel that's
yeah,
nonstop on
I
play for
know.
me. It's just so yeah, growing up. I was my grandfather's CD was the only thing that was ever played, his music, and it
Oh
was
yeah,
just
yeah.
on repeat and Lou Monte and all that stuff. So it's like all that stuff is the same, chord progressions and the songs
Yeah,
all sound the same. So, when
right.
to me as a young kid, it was like, oh, the Beatles, I'm not going to listen to this. This is not what I know. But now it's just like, yeah, it's crazy how things change over the years. But
Yeah, the only thing outside of like, the traditional Italian music that was always played in my house or classical music, there was hardly ever any like rock music. Actually, my family was kind of against it. And then, but every once in a while, you'd get the Beatles thing in there, or they would hear, they had like the old, I don't know, the old kind of radio that you could pick up some Italian stations every once in a while. And,
hmm,
you hear some like modern, like Italian rock kind of thing, which is
all right.
typically awful
Yeah, no.
in the 80s and stuff. But, there was really no like rock and roll. And, it had a kind of a bad element, I think my parents thought. And when you become a teenager, then you kind of start doing your own thing
Right.
and
Yeah.
hanging out with your buddies that have, hey, here's the new Queen cassette or
Right.
something like that, or ACDC cassette. And like,
Right.
whoa, what's that?
Yeah, exactly.
Then you're just
So,
sneaking albums, and trying to
yeah.
buy albums.
So, I first found out about you from my guitarist, Frank Calvagna. And
Frank, oh yeah,
yeah, so you guys have a strong connection to each other. And I know
yeah, man.
you taught guitar, right, at his place?
Yeah. So
That's
just jamming. So yeah, Frank. Man, I was just a baby, man. So I had just, I had just turned 16, so I just got my license driving, and I was looking for a gig. And my first, I was playing actually by that time too. I was already gigging with a cover band. So wasn't even able to drive yet. I'm playing in Chicago and stuff like that, and
wow.
I mean, crazy, and
Yeah.
then that my family would let me do that, but whatever, it is what it is. It was a great experience, but I had to find, that was just a weekend thing, and I had to really find a job to make some extra money to get the things I wanted, the records I want, stuff like that. So my uncle Pio. got me a job at Pridem
Hmm.
Pridem Liquor. It was off of Alpine and Harrison. I think it was
Hmm.
it was a grocery store, and there was a liquor store there, and my cousins worked there and stuff, and he got me in, and it lasted about a month. I couldn't deal with like stocking like the beer fridge, and it was just 16 years old.
Right.
Anyway, so the band I was in at the time, it's called Roller. Rockford people will probably remember that band. So I was playing with them, and the drummer we had at the time was teaching at Just Jammin'. And
Hmm.
I was like, hey man, you got to get me in to start teaching at Just Jammin'. So he introduced me to Frank. This would have been probably maybe 86, 87, I think. I mean,
Oh,
Just
wow.
Jammin', I think he just had opened up the store maybe a year or two before this. And I was familiar with the music store, real small, like
Hmm.
one room kind of thing. And then there was a studio behind it. I can't remember the name of
Yeah,
the
I
studio,
can't.
like a recording
Yeah,
studio
there
behind it.
was.
But so he had, met him, real nice guy. And then he set me up with lessons. They'd get my students. And it's funny, a lot of the students I have are still playing, that I had at the time, are still
Hmm.
like playing and gigging. And it's
That's
like
cool.
incredible. But so the lesson room, though, because the store wasn't big enough and didn't have another room in it, was like across the street in some like old like mechanic's garage office. It was
Oh,
weird.
really?
So anyway, I did that for, man, I probably taught there 3-4 years, I
Oh,
think,
wow.
until they ended up closing. Then I made the mistake of taking on the students I had. It's like, yeah, I was so young and eager. I'll drive to your house
Oh,
and
yeah.
give you your half hour lesson. You just, pay me $5 extra and,
Right.
for gas money. It just didn't work because, you're used to like doing a half-hour lesson back to back. And now I've got to drive. And I wasn't thinking like, okay, well, it's going to take me 20 minutes to get to this person's house, or 20 minutes.
Right.
It was a mess. So I did that for a few
I
years.
did
And
that too. I
oh
I
man,
couldn't stand it. Yeah,
yeah,
I did it for
yeah,
2 years teaching at people's houses, and that didn't last for more than 2 years, and I was over.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I have some interesting stories about that
yeah.
just were really uncomfortable.
Me too.
But
Yeah,
yeah, so that's how I met Frank, and I've kept in touch with him over the
yeah,
years, and glad he's still doing well, and I'm glad he's playing with you, man. I've heard a lot of the live stuff you've done, and
yeah.
man, you guys sound great. It's
Well,
tight.
thanks. We try. We don't know what we're doing, but we try.
Oh yeah, whatever.
our pr- our practice is on the stage. We get up on stage and we say this is our practice. So, but
Yeah,
no, we have
yeah,
a fun time. Frank's a great guy. But
yeah, he
so,
is.
what was the progression of teaching at Just Jammin', playing in Rockford, Chicago area, and then
Yep.
when did you decide, okay, Rockford or Northern Illinois is not gonna cut it for the music business, and kind of go off on your own, and then where did that lead you?
Yeah, so after that band that I was in, the roller band, I left that to try. I was getting really into like jazz and getting into more writing, like instrumental kind of stuff, and I wasn't sure which direction I wanted to go. And so I had a few years of I was just kind of in lingo there as far as like a direction, and then I started to really get back into recording, and I started building a studio where I could record my own stuff. And this was still back in the analog days, right before digital started really coming out. So I had like a 16 track reel to reel, and I was building a little studio for myself, and I was recording demos. And one of my friends that I used to play in a band with just started playing with this other guy, and he introduced me to him. And his name was Mike Dollar. He worked at Gazzardo Music,
Hmm.
and he was a singer and drummer, and was looking for other musicians. And anyway, we started working together, and for a few years, and recording like really major demos. And the problem was we couldn't find. It was kind of a mix of rock and prog rock, so it was fun to play. I think it was probably the wrong time.
Right.
Maybe it was like late 80s, it would have been
Right,
great.
right,
But, but we were into it, and so we were really pursuing that. And we couldn't find musicians that could play the stuff in Rockford or were willing to kind of do the original thing. Because back then, and it might still be that way out in that part of the Midwest, is you couldn't really, there was no places to play where you can just be an original band.
right.
It was, you had to be, if you wanted originals, you had to be a cover band, be able to play 3 sets, and then you throw in your original songs that no one wanted to hear anyway. So
Right.
that was the only way you'd get to play your own stuff. So we didn't want to do that. So we wanted to just focus on doing original sets and shows. So we couldn't find shows. You couldn't find musicians that were willing to do that, basically because you're not getting paid either. So it's for free.
Mm-hmm.
So he was originally from Flushing, Michigan, which is kind of out by Detroit area. And he had a childhood friend that was a really great drummer that wanted to play with us. But then we had the issue, he wasn't going to move to Rockford to, play no gigs.
Right.
There's nowhere to play. So Mike's wife at the time had a job opportunity to teach in Grand Rapids at the major university. She was a teacher, and they were considering moving out this way. And he just asked me, "Hey, would you be willing to follow us out there?" My buddy, who plays drums, is willing to move out that way too, because it's not that far from where he originally is from. And I was young, had nothing else going on. I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." I don't know.
Wow.
Thinking back on it, I'm like, what was I thinking? I had a good job. I was working at Bergner's distribution center. I was like, oh man, I was making great money and,
Oh, wow.
having fun playing. I was like, I need to play music. And anyway, so I moved out here. I want to say it was 96 for sure. It was 96. Beginning of 96, I moved out here. And we kept doing our thing. It was called The Light in Between, ended up being the name of the band. And we did our record. We recorded it at Smart Studio up in Madison, Wisconsin, where Nirvana recorded, and
Right.
Smashing Pumpkins recorded, and Garbage, obviously that was producer Butch Vig.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that record. It turned out great. We started playing all around Michigan, and then just like typical things with bands, you get people that aren't into it anymore and they decide to find something else, and just fumble. So it basically, that kind of fizzled out. So I was working at a music store out here in Grand Rapids, like a sales manager kind of thing, and teaching as well. And you start getting to know the locals, and Verve Pipe was from Grand Rapids, or some of the guys were from Grand Rapids, so I became friends with all of them, and Brian.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on some of his solo stuff, and so you get in that loop. And then I was playing with other bands, and I had another band I was in that I started. It was called the Rocket King, and we were really doing really well out here. And then it turned out that Verve Pipe needed a guitar player to play in Hawaii, Honolulu.
Wow.
And I knew Brian, and I knew a few of the other guys, and I was like, yeah, I can do it. And so my first gig was playing at the Navy base in Honolulu,
Wow.
Hawaii. The guy from the Allstate commercial was the MC. It's
Oh,
a
really?
huge, like, I didn't know what it was. What. So, and I was familiar with Verve Pipe because when I moved out here, they had,
Right.
the big hit. So I was familiar with that song and a few other songs that they were playing around here. And, but I didn't really know the catalog. And then, hey, you want to play with us? Do you know these songs? I'm like, yeah, I know them. And then quickly, like, finding CDs and finding
Right.
stuff, like, I got to learn this, I got to learn that. And then, basically I had 3 weeks to learn 23 or 24 songs we played. We had to play 2 hours, headline this show. And, so there's a picture somewhere online, but I had like my cheat sheets, which I'd write with marker for every song,
Mm-hmm.
and still to this day, I do that. I throw them on the floor. So
Yeah,
I
we
had
do
them
it
all
too.
like with that insert, so they won't get ruined. And so I had them taped on the stage right in my little box area. And I remember the harmonica player, Griff, took a picture of it. He's like, man, by the time we're in the middle of the set, those are going to be all over the place. I had them taped down and everything because, I'm going to be standing on them. People are going to be standing on them. And anyway, we played the show and it was great. And the guys came up after the gig, he's like, hey man, you want to do this like, full time? And I'm like, yeah, man, let's, I was okay, sure. I guess I
That's
did a good
cool.
job. And then that's kind of, where it started. And at that time, Verve Pipe was just only doing, shows here and there. They weren't signed anymore to RCA. But they were doing these kids records. And there was just at least talk about doing a kids record. And I was like, I didn't understand what they were talking about. But I was like, yeah, I was just jumping in. Yeah, like, yeah, whatever. And so we did these kids record, the first kids record. And it just blew up the band. It was incredible. Like we were just touring all over the place, and it just rejuvenated the whole thing. And then we did a follow-up to that. And like, top 10 of kids records on iTunes for those years. And it was incredible. We were playing these amazing festivals, amazing gigs all over the place, being treated like rock star, like all that stuff. And then after that, after the momentum of the kids records, we decided to get back to doing rock records. So that's kind of where we're at. Since that time, we've put out 3 or 4 rock records. 4 and 1 live record. We did a live version of Villains. It's called Villains Acoustic and Live. And that was basically a remake of the hit record Villains from 96, 97, and doing it with new kind of arrangements and instrumentation and stuff like that. So we recorded that. That's probably been about 4 years ago now. And right now we're working on a new record that we've been kind of recording we started recording middle of last year, and we just started getting back in the studio this week to start tracking some more tunes. And the one cool thing about being in this band is everyone gets to have kind of say in the direction of the songs. Like, they let me write songs, and I get to write my own parts, their songs. And so it's cool to be able to write a song, and, it comes together, and
that's cool.
and you get some royalty here and there, and it's not much, believe me. But but it's kind of cool,
Yeah.
But
No,
so that's how it kind of ended up for me out this way. And
that's a cool
it
story.
worked
So
out.
so you've been with Verve Pipe, what is it, almost 20 years then? Since the 90s?
No. So at 96, I moved out here in 96. I didn't start with them until it would have been 2008, I believe.
Okay.
So we're talking 11 years now, 12, maybe coming on 12. So I wish I was there in the when the hit was there.
That's cool. So, but still, following you, you've played. It looks like all over, at least the country. But you've been overseas, right,
Europe
with them?
and stuff
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
cool.
Yep.
So I mean,
we did the USO tours. So after the Hawaii tour, right after that, we did some Midwest tours in the States, and then we got asked to do a USO tour of Sicily, Spain, and Italy, and we did that twice, within like a two-year span. And that was awesome, because there was one time we played the naval base in Naples. The second time we played there, usually it was around the 4th of July, for us, 4th of July celebrations. And so they would have these huge festival concerts for a whole week in these naval bases in Europe. And so they have concerts and entertainment and for the troops and stuff like that. So the second time we played Naples was like the 3rd of July, and we had a day off, July 4th, which obviously they don't celebrate that out there, but the naval base, they celebrate it there. So we played on the 3rd, and then we were off on the 4th. And because Naples is close to Ferentino, like maybe an hour and a half from Ferentino, my cousins who still lived there, I told them, hey, I was going to be out there, and they like, oh, great. And, they picked me up, and I was able to spend the whole day with all my cousins and my aunt.
That's cool.
And that would have been, I think that was 2013, maybe 2014, maybe 2013. And so that was really cool. I mean, honestly, that was a great time, but sadly, it's the last time I've been out there, and I still have family out there, so
Yeah,
it'd be nice to get back out.
it's been 11 years for me. So yeah, I got to go
Mm.
back out. But do you discover when I was out there 11 years ago, I thought this was so strange, but I was mostly in Sicily, but my cousins out there were like 10 years late to discovering like 90s music. I don't know if that happens with you with the Verve Pipe, but like they had just discovered the Spin Doctors and they were like huge into the Spin Doctors. I was like, it's 2009. The Spin Doctors were like quite a few years ago, and
Yeah,
like and the Weezer and Spin Doctors and all that, and of course Weezer's still big, but it was just like, why are
yeah.
you guys just getting into this now? But I don't know if you run into that where like the Verve Pipe
Yeah.
is just now getting discovered in these European countries, but it's strange to me.
Yeah, I mean, like it's funny. The Spin Doctors. We've been doing a bunch of gigs with those guys. At least last year we were, but it's they are familiar with the hit songs,
Right,
Colorful and
right, right.
Freshman, Never Let You Down, something like that. But it's one of those things that they're so more appreciative of music, but their taste in music, I don't know. It's like, what are you guys listening to? It's like when last time I was out there, it was a constant like, I didn't even know the style of music, like disco-y kind of
Yeah,
music. That's all you kind of heard on popular radio
yeah.
out there, and it was odd. But then they'd be really appreciative of like the virtuoso kind of musicians still. Like it was still
Hmm.
like almost like 1980,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
late 80s. They were still into the Scorpions and like weird.
Yeah, it is strange. I thought it was strange when I was over there too. I mean,
Yeah.
they had that like Italian gangster rap, and it's just so strange. Like
Yeah,
that
that's what
whole,
it was. That's
yeah,
what it
it's just
was.
like
Yep.
this doesn't seem right, but okay, you guys do whatever you want. But do you, we don't tour like you guys do, of course. But when
Oh, not
Frank,
right now.
well,
We're
yeah,
not doing anything right now.
yeah, but like when Frank, Tony, and I, and we get to at least do mini tours, and we go around the states to these Italian festivals. I don't know how you could do it, at the capacity you guys were doing or have been doing it, because
Mhm.
a lot of people don't. The touring life, in my experience, is not very glamorous, and it's a lot of when people ask, and Frank, if Frank's watching this, sorry, but Frank gets so upset about the hurry up and wait stuff because
That's the
it,
motto, man.
it's
That's
it's the
exactly it.
whole thing, and people don't realize that, and it's just like, oh, you got to be here at 10 a.m. for like a radio interview, and then but the
Yep.
festival's not till 8 o'clock at night, and it's just like, well, what are we gonna do all day? And it's you sit there, and
Yep.
sometimes we venture out. Do you guys go out and like venture out and
Yep.
try to explore the
That
cities?
that's our main thing. So you're exactly right. It's what regard even if it's a fly date, you
Right,
would think the fly dates would be easier. And if anything, they're harder because you're waiting even more. I mean, the advantage of a fly day is that you at least get to wait maybe in the airport on a layover and you can walk around and shop and stuff
right,
versus, a 14 hour, Sprinter vehicle with, 7 people driving to Nashville or,
right.
to play a gig. So yeah, it's definitely the hurry up and wait. It's always been that way, even
Yeah,
before like doing like big tours. It's always been that
yeah.
way. But it's when we do like a tour, which we were supposed to do, in May of this year, which got postponed to next year. It will be our next major tour, and that's all of like East Coast and Florida and stuff like that. What we do, we try to, or management tries to book it and space it out so we have some time off, and we do have time to kind of explore the cities and do things.
Hmm.
Um, so we will always take advantage of that when we're out there, especially when we're New York's not really that far from where we're at. So everyone in the band is in Michigan. A couple guys live in Lansing area, which is an hour from where I'm at.
Hmm.
So we'll meet at a park and ride, load up the Sprinter van, because a lot of those gigs when we have to drive, they're not backline, so we take our rig,
All right.
our gear, I should say, and then we'll play the whatever Lincoln Park, whatever we're playing out that way. But it's still like a 12-hour drive. So we try to, early on when I first started in the band, we would drive the 12 or 14 hours and then get out, load, do sound check right away, sit around for 3-4 hours, and then play. And talk about being just exhausted,
Yeah.
even though you're just sitting there in a vehicle, but sitting there that long and then having to play with energy for an hour and a half to 2 hours, it's tough, man. And then
Yeah.
what they would do is book a gig that we had to drive another 8 hours the next day. So we'd get to the hotel at midnight, let's say, have to wake up at 7 to do a lobby call, and then
Mm-hmm.
drive 8 hours and do the same thing. So now we've kind of gotten to the point where we'll split it up. We'll do, maybe if it's, a 14-hour drive, we'll do 7. We'll stay somewhere for that night, do the next 7 the next day, then play the gig. Or if we get all the way to our destination, we won't play that night. We'll wait till the next day. So then we can, chill out, relax, and,
Yeah.
go to the hotel gym and do whatever we got to do, and, try to get our blood flowing again from sitting in that cement
no.
mixer.
Yeah, it's a crazy life. So I'm sure you do it way more than I do, but I'm sure it's rewarding, but it's also exhausting at the same time. So you love it
Yeah.
and hate it. It's half the time.
The best part is, the performance part of it,
Yeah.
and then usually after the show is usually pretty fun for us. Cause if we don't have to like get to bed really fast, we'll hang out with
Yeah.
fans and,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And we really try to make the best of it. And it is great. It's that hurry up and wait to get to where you're going and then waiting.
Yeah.
It's the worst. It's the worst.
No, it is. And last year, Frank and I pulled off some pretty, I don't know why we did it this way, but like we flew the morning of to Denver, played, went to sleep. We had to play again, got up, played, and only had an hour to get to the airport. Rushed after we played to the airport to get back home, and then we had another gig the day after out here in Rockford
Man.
area. And it's just like, man, it's fun, but it's just like we were just in Denver, now we're back in Rockford, and it's just everything gets all confusing. But but it's a crazy life. But you've played all over. But does anything stick out to you as like one or two favorite like even cities to play in or venues, specific venues? Do you have like something after all these years that really sticks out, like that's just memorable venue or a festival or something?
Yeah. So I mean, like most meaningful, I guess, shows that we've done were those USO tours, because you're kind of doing it for the troops, and
Right.
it was really cool to that's their enjoyment, and to kind of give back in that small way. That like is really touching to me. So I really look on those memories. I mean, it's just really fondly on those moments. Like favorite shows like that are just there's so much energy and vibe in them, are that when we do our area here and we play more to the local
Mm-hmm.
crowd, because we're playing the huge state, like we did this. I'm probably wrong with how many years ago this was, but I'm going to say it's 5 years ago. We did a show at the stadium here at Van Ando with Cheap Trick, so, Cheap Trick, obviously Rockford,
Oh yeah.
and, Rick. And so I was hanging out with him, telling him, hey man, I'm from Rockford. I had a girlfriend that used to like babysit your kid, like that kind of thing. He's just looking at me like, why are you from Rockford? And giving me a hard time, like, hey, I don't live in Rockford anymore. You still do. But no, so like those shows for like, you have the hometown kind of fans, and they're just like over the top, sold out. It's like those are the energy that the room gives off to play for hour and a half, 2 hours. It's just amazing. And you can't, when you get done with those kind of shows, you can't, even though there might be in your own town, and I get to drive home, be home by 11:30, and get to see my own bed. And you can't sleep, just because you have that adrenaline rush, and and that ringing in your ears.
Right. Yeah.
But
yeah,
those are. Go ahead.
No, people ask me sometimes, and what I find in my experience is sometimes it's not even the big festivals that seem rewarding, because sometimes even though there's a lot of people, they're not paying attention, or they're walking around and they listen to a song and then they go to the next stage or whatever. But sometimes it's even the more intimate 200 people, and even if you're not making a crap ton of money at the show, they actually pay attention And to me,
Yeah.
sometimes that's the more rewarding thing when they're like actually listening to how you play and paying
Hmm.
attention. They're sitting for the hour and a half, and it's like they really
Yeah.
enjoy it. To me, that's the most rewarding thing out of all of it. So
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of these sit down rooms. That's kind of like the latest thing, probably in the last 5, 6 years. These city wineries.
right, yeah,
We have a show coming up in November. Still, actually, it's confirmed, so we're still
mm,
doing them. City winery in Chicago, but it's limited capacity, obviously. So
right,
we're doing 2 shows. It's like November. I wrote them down. Yeah, November 21st and 22nd, City Winery in Chicago.
cool,
And it's a Saturday, Sunday. And to make it work financially for us, because it's a limited amount of people that they'll let in there, we're doing 2 shows. So we're doing like a midday show and then a night show on those days. But like we've been doing a ton of these sit down listening room
mm-hmm,
kind of shows, and there are maybe 200 to 400 people in them, and they're usually serving like some kind of dinner. It's part of the whole thing. And the city
right,
winery usually they have the uh, special wine
oh
that
yeah,
has our picture on it. It
yeah,
has a Verve Pipe wine, even though it's just a site, they just put a sticker on the
right,
bottom.
right,
Anyway, it's a special thing. But anyway, so but it is cool to play those because it's we get to do, obviously we still have to play kind of the hit songs that everyone knows, but we get
right,
to play more obscure stuff that no one knows. Or what we were doing last year is kind of doing feature spotlights of all the people in the band, and we get to do our own original tune
hmm.
by ourselves, which is a
Oh,
little
wow,
nerve wracking. When you're playing,
wow,
everyone wants to hear the freshman right
right,
away,
right,
and
right,
no, hold on, you got to hear my song first.
right,
So those have been really cool, and you get a really good, cool reaction from people after that too, because you get to talk to them,
mm-hmm,
and they and we'll do like kind of a story thing about the songs, and give like a little snippet of what was going on in the writer's mind when they wrote that song. And
that's cool.
so you get kind of more of that personal kind of connection. So those have been really cool for us. And we've been, I think it's probably been 4 or 5 years since we've really been doing a lot of those. And the city winery, we do all the city wineries across the nation. So,
Yeah, those are really cool venues, the city wineries. They've really,
yeah,
in the past few years, really getting a lot of attention, and that listening room experience is cool.
yeah,
I've seen some
yeah,
shows there, and it's cool. But just before we go, I got a couple more questions for you.
sure.
Going back to the Italian American thing. So I know you're not, playing Italian American music, which is totally fine. That's not what this is all about. But
I did do one, like it's on, I posted it on, online on my website.
oh,
I
really?
think it's Facebook and stuff. But when I'm in town, I have a church gig that I play every week. And there was a series that it was for Mother's Day. And
Did you
we
do
were doing
Mama?
dedications. Yeah, we were doing dedications to our mom. So I did a whole dedication.
Oh, cool.
Um, I can't remember the song I did now that you said Mama. It wasn't Mama,
Oh,
but
no.
anyway, it's online. I did it in
Oh, cool.
Italian. Um,
I'll have to
and I
attach it
showed
to
it to
this.
my mom.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
I think I want to say it's either on my website, or I'm sure it's on Facebook too. But
Cool.
yeah, so I did it, and I flubbed a couple of the words here and there. But you're playing in
No one
front
knows.
of
Yeah.
hundreds of people and online, and like, oh no, I can't get this wrong for my mom. It's got to be right. But
Yeah.
so it was fun to do that. And there's been times where I've had to do like, they've done like Italian medleys where I bust out a mandolin, and I'm
Oh,
not
cool.
like a great mandolin player, but I can figure out stuff, and had to do a whole medley, 15-minute medley on mandolin, like solo, which
Wow.
was years ago. But so every once in a while I get a chance to bring out my roots, I guess.
That's cool. So when you look, because you're 100% Italian, right? Both sides. So I mean,
Yeah.
when you look at the country, and there's Frank Sinatra, all that's 50 years
Hmm.
past. Do you have what's your hope, I guess, for the future of Italian American entertainment in particular?
Well, I think what you're doing is like amazing, because you're sticking to a tradition that you don't hear anymore, with those classic songs. And I know you're doing modern stuff too, and stuff
Yeah.
you've written, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, and so you're kind of you're bringing back kind of my history and my cousin's histories and stuff like that, and you're bringing it to a modern ear, which you don't hear anymore. So I think artists like yourself, I think is really it's a great thing that you're doing, that you really are bringing back our history with those songs and keeping it fresh, at least where people can remember their childhood, or if they didn't have that in their childhood, appreciate it
Right.
for what it was at the time. And I think that that's very cool. And it's easy to get lost in what's going on in today's world, and and not and it's easy to brush off history from people. And music obviously is something that can take people back to a time in their lives, that good and bad.
Hmm.
So I think like what you're doing is amazing. So I'm
Well,
hoping
thanks.
that more artists like yourselves, and who knows, maybe one day, I'm working on a solo record myself. It's not going to be Italian, but I have all those songs still. I've got like
Yeah.
real tapes and cassette of my dad playing all these songs with probably wrong words, but
Oh, it's-
I remember all those songs. I remember the melodies of them. And
yeah.
maybe one day I'll, dive back into doing something, or maybe just a little tribute EP or something like that.
Yeah, that'd
Italian
be
music.
cool. Yeah, no,
It'd be fun.
there's it's interesting, when I did not start doing Italian music. I mean, I started 16 years old also playing Mary's Place and Kryptonite Bar here in Rockford and doing, you
Oh,
know,
Kryptonite, I played there.
yeah,
Yeah.
doing pop rock stuff. I was
Yeah.
big into all that, and it was all originals, and no one wants to hear your originals, and so I got frustrated, and then
Mhm.
my grandfather started getting ill, and then it was met Frank, and we discovered early on that we did it for a couple years, and we got the big festival gigs. We were playing Milwaukee Fest and all that, and it was just like, yeah, but people don't want to just hear the papa, the
Yeah.
traditional. So
The polka
yeah,
kind of
so
stuff.
so
Yeah.
let's mix it up, and I think that's kind of what's cool about what, especially the way Frank plays. As you know, I
Yeah. Oh,
mean,
yeah.
to really
Yep.
mix it up, and it's Italian, but it's new Italian in our eyes of
Yep.
what we see, and I think that's the way it's got to go with other people, not just us, but to take what we grew up on and use it as 10% of the music, and so the foundation's there, but kind of mix it up a little bit. So
Yep.
I
Yep.
hope I
Like,
hope people like my son, and in 20 years when he's old enough and all that, he can keep doing this. So
oh, for sure, man. And yeah, you're
yeah,
keeping it alive, man. And that's a cool thing. It's very cool.
well, thanks. And so before we go, what's next for you? I know we're still in COVID times, but what's next for
Yeah.
you, and what's next for the Verve Pipe and the band in general, and how can people find out about what you're doing and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so you can obviously go to my website, which is you can look under loumusa.com or Lou J Musa, so LOUJMUSA.com. That's my website.
Okay.
So the links to all the social media thing. And I Verb Pipe wise, I wrote down the dates. We don't have much. Obviously, all got canceled, but
All right.
what we do have still for that is confirmed October 10th.
Mm.
That's next Saturday. We're doing a live stream concert for the Arc in Ann Arbor.
Oh yeah.
Real famous club out there. They
Yeah.
obviously are not open, but they are doing live streaming concerts, and we're actually filming it here in Grand Rapids, like 5 camera shoot kind of thing.
Mm.
At the Listening Room is what it's called in
Yeah.
Grand Rapids.
Hmm.
So we're doing that there, and there. I believe you probably find more information on the Arc's website of how to download that or watch it, I guess.
Cool.
And then the week after that, we have a fly date, another fly date. But anyway, October 17th at the Orpheum Theater in Omaha, Nebraska.
Oh wow.
I guess they're not shut down there, so I guess we're playing. Don't believe me, I'm wearing my mask.
I was gonna say you're
goggles,
gonna
and
wear
all
like
that stuff.
a hazmat suit on the
Yeah.
airplane
Oh,
and all
yeah.
that.
You better believe it. Like, we had a gig. It was a trio of us had a gig in Washington. It was about a month ago, and I had the goggles and that. I mean, I didn't mess around.
I don't
But
blame you.
then, and then after that, November 21st, 22nd, City Winery, which I mentioned before. We're doing that,
Cool.
and right now we have some other tentative shows but nothing confirmed yet. It's so like hit or miss. And our tour that we're supposed to be doing that was canceled for this spring and summer got moved 3 times, and now it's moved to May of next year. So we'll hold our breath, or maybe not hold our breath, and see if it happens. Obviously we'll keep everyone up to date
Cool.
as we get through this, I guess.
Yeah, it's tough. I was doing promoting too here in Rockford. I don't know if I told you about that, but I was putting on shows and starting a little theater and all that. So one of these days when all that comes back, we'll have to get the homeboy back in back in Rockford with the Verve Pipe. I don't have you guys even
or
have you
I'll
played
come
him?
on. I'll jam with you guys.
Hey,
man.
that'd be great. That'd be fun. You and Frank back at it like the old days.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we played. Verve Pipe played. What was the festival out there?
Oh,
they don't have
Waterfront?
it anymore.
Yeah, Waterfront.
Yeah, Waterfront. That's a big.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that that was early on when I first joined. So that probably was like two. I think it was the last year they did Waterfront.
Oh, we were
whatever
probably.
that was.
Yeah, I played the last one. It was 2010, I think. 10 or 11
Yeah, I
was
think
the
that's
last
when
one.
it was. Something
And we
like
got
that.
I got to play. I was like, finally, I'm going to play Waterfront, and it was the last one. I was like, all right, well, at least I got to play once.
Yep.
But all right, well, I appreciate you coming on here. It's great talking to, of course, Italian American, but especially one from Rockford, and especially with the family connection. I'll see if I can edit the picture of my grandfather and your dad on this video somehow.
That'd be awesome.
That'd
man.
be kind of cool. Kind of pop it up there for a second when we talked about it earlier. But it's still crazy to me how small the world is. But
yeah, it sure is. Man.
Yeah,
and it was great. It's been great to talk to you, Vince. It really has.
Well, thanks. Yeah, and hopefully we can meet in person one day. I've only been over.
That'd be great. Or jam. We'll jam.
That'll be fun. But once again, thanks. I'll tag you on all this, website links and all
Sounds
that.
good,
and
man.
Hopefully we'll talk soon in the future. So once again, everybody, Lou Musa, check him out online and the Verve Pipe. So, all right, we'll talk soon. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
All right.